Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. I'm your host, as always, Corey Douglas. Well, for today's episode, I have a couple of non-sports topics that I wanted to get to. I'm definitely going to start incorporating more of the non-sports in here, just because it shows more of my personality, who I am as a person, and just kind of what my interests are outside of the sports game. And number one is, at what point when you're driving on the highway in the left lane, are you of the mindset where you're saying, I don't care, I'm not moving, I'm going fast enough, you need to calm down? Because I had a experience this weekend where I was driving in the left lane, there was about 7 or 8 cars ahead of me, and I would say we're probably all going around 85. We're going 85, the speed limit's 70, but we're just going with the flow of traffic. Nobody's really cutting each other off, and then all of a sudden you have these clowns that come up and they start switching lanes, they start cutting people off, and there's traffic in the right lane already, so you already know what their motive is, and the motive is to just go back to the left lane, cut you off, and try to get through all this traffic. But there's nowhere to go, so at this point you're just being a jackass because cutting people off for no reason. Like, if people are already going, for instance, like for me, if I'm already going 85 and the speed limit is 70, I'm not moving. You can try to go around me, but you better believe I'm going to do my best to not let you over. So, and that's different from, okay, so if I'm going 85 and the speed limit is 70 and there's no cars in front of me and there's no traffic on the right lane, okay, yeah, I'll get over in that scenario. But if it's like 7 or 8 cars deep and we're all going 85 in a 70 mile an hour speed limit zone, I'm not moving. So I just want to know, with you guys out there, at what point do you guys get in that mindset where you're like, all right, I'm going fast enough, you're just going to have to either chill out or just, be a jackass? The fascination with putting ranch on everything. You have people eating the ranch with wings, fries, pizza, just all sorts of things that I'm not eating ranch with wings, pizza, or fries. But in this specific scenario, I want to talk about putting ranch on fries. So I saw this question on Twitter, and it was like, what do fries taste the best with? And it had ranch, it had sriracha, it had hot sauce, ketchup. And my answer to that is, I'm not eating my fries with any of that if they're good fries. So if you find the fries with the right amount of salt on it, undefeated. You don't need any of the condiments that people typically use with it. So that's my thoughts on that. I just want to give a quick shout out to my guy, Dez Bryant. The reason I'm giving him a shout out today is because on Sunday evening, he went out to Dallas and fed 500 families. And, that's something that a lot of people, the media, and just people out there don't realize, how much Dez Bryant is really out there in the community and doing what he can to help those in need. So salute to Dez Bryant. I'm a little bit disappointed in the way The Last Dance was portrayed coming in. I thought it was going to be more along the lines of, I don't know if you guys have seen All or Nothing for the NFL, but basically it shows behind the scenes looks at meetings. It shows different interactions that players have with coaches throughout the season, with their teammates. I thought we were going to get, a lot of MJ exclusives from practice. Like, we got the Steve Kerr story. We heard a little bit of the stuff where, people portray Michael Jordan as an asshole in practice. We got some of those stories, but I thought we were going to get in-depth behind the scenes footage of that season. Instead, we got a little bit of 97, 98, then a little bit of 89, and then back to 97, 98, and then we went back to 93, 94, and, the first three-peat, which is all fine and dandy, but I don't feel that we learned as much as I think it was portrayed coming into it. So that's definitely one of my, probably my biggest nitpicks from The Last Dance. Overall, I would probably grade it about 8 out of 10 because I did find a lot of the stuff fascinating, even though I knew a lot of the stories coming in. It's just kind of funny to look back on some of the battles that he had with, the Pistons and then, the Celtics in his second year, dealing with that whole thing and, going off on them, but then getting swept at the same time. The number one thing I found most fascinating and something I actually did not know or realize, because I was only 4 years old when this happened, was that after Jordan retired after the first three-peat, Scottie remained in Chicago. Tony Kukoc was still in Chicago, among some of the other players that were still there. Obviously, Phil Jackson was still coaching the Bulls. And there was a play in a playoff series against the New York Knicks where it was a last-second play. Phil Jackson was drawing it up. And Scottie felt, because he was the best player at the time without Michael Jordan there, that the play should have been drawn up for him. Phil Jackson thought otherwise. He drew the play up for Tony Kukoc, who had hit multiple game-winning shots earlier in the season. And once Scottie saw that the play wasn't going to be for him, he withheld his services from that play. Tony Kukoc went on to, win the game, and Scottie, kind of apologized at the time, but at the same time was just like, nah, it happens. Stuff like that happens, in competitive sports when you feel like you should be the alpha kind of thing. And I also didn't remember, related to Scottie, that he actually injured his back in Game 6 of the 97-98 season. And Jordan said during the documentary that he was nervous as hell when that injury happened because he had to go back to the locker room, miss some time, but you could tell he was laboring throughout the rest of the game. A lot of talk has come out since the documentary, finished and the finale aired, was that Scottie wasn't happy with the way he was portrayed with some of the back injury, the withholding his services from the last play in the Tony Kukoc game, the contract thing that he had been dealing with. But then it kind of surprised me because he came out after and was like, I'm not happy with the way I was portrayed with that. And I'm like, Scottie, you said during the documentary that you don't regret anything that happened with the Tony Kukoc game. So I'm just like, how are you at the same time saying I'm not apologizing for that, but then turn around after and say, I don't like the way I was portrayed? So that part didn't really make sense to me. And Dennis Rodman, now I knew he was a clown and a character, and he loved the drinking, the gambling, the pretty women. I knew he loved all that, but a couple instances through that documentary had me like, damn, this dude was nuts. So he wore his slippers to practice. Like, he walked in there with his just full-out pajamas out there. So that was pretty crazy to me. And then seeing him leave after a finals game is for a wrestling appearance, that's nuts to me, because I think in today's age of social media, if a player is doing that, dude, they're going to get grilled by the media, fans, and just everybody out there. So yeah, Dennis Rodman he's a character. I kind of like the dude, honestly. Like, even if he was in today's age, I wouldn't have a big problem with him. He's living his life, and hey, I can't blame him for it. One thing I found annoying throughout this whole thing is the comparison between Michael Jordan and LeBron. Because I think Michael Jordan is better than LeBron, but I'm not going to sit here on social media throughout this documentary and just barbecue everybody that thinks the opposite way. I think it's just the way you grew up. So like, I'm about to be 30 years old later this year. So I kind of grew up on the tail end of the Michael Jordan era, and the dude is phenomenal. The dude is just his whole mindset and the way he approached the game. From that aspect, I think Kobe Bryant was the closest thing that we've seen to that. LeBron is a different beast. He's a different animal. I don't people say like the will to win and just the attitude and that sort of thing. I definitely think LeBron is below Michael and Kobe in that department. But overall, as a basketball player, I rate Michael Jordan, LeBron, and then Kobe. But like I said, that's not a slight at any one of those two that's not ranked number one. It's just my personal opinion from what I've seen and kind of how I grew up. But yeah, those are my 3 takeaways from The Last Stand. And also, actually, one other thing I actually have is I don't know how you can necessarily kill Krause for, breaking up the second three-peat, because the owner had to sign off on it. So I think if you're going to blame Jerry Krause, the GM, you also have to blame the owner who wasn't, willing to spend the money to keep that team together. All right, so obviously the Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott he's a hot topic right now, from just how good he is. Is he worth the money he's asking for? What is he doing with the contract? All those sorts of things. And I just want to say this. And while I don't think Dak Prescott is elite, and we'll kind of get to the rankings here in a second, I don't think Dak Prescott is elite, but I understand what he's doing right now. Like, I get it. But I have a problem with the system overall. So not Dak Prescott and any of these players that want to get their money and feel like they should be the highest paid player. I don't have a problem with that aspect of it. The problem I have is the next man up getting paid the most system that the NFL has evolved into. So just because you're next man up, like you might be the 10th best quarterback in the league, but just because your contract is up, you're going to be paid as the number 1 guy in the league. I hate that. Like that is a disservice to the best players in the league, because I think that creates the mindset of like, okay, well, I need my next contract, even though you might have 2 or 3 years left on the contract. So like I said, I don't have a problem with Dak Prescott, wanting his money. I think the only thing that I would have a problem with on the Dak Prescott side is the fact that it's 5 years versus 4 years. It's the rumored, hold up with the contract. So that part, I'm just like, dude, 4 versus 5. All right, yeah, 4 years get you closer to the new TV deal money when it comes. But at the same time, like, it's not that big of a deal. 1 year later, like, what difference does it make? And you can argue that from the Cowboys side too. Like, why are you holding out this 1 extra year? Like, just go ahead and cave to the 4 year, which I do think they'll do. I do think eventually they'll come to an agreement for the 4 year deal that Dak Prescott wants, just because the Cowboys in these situations, they cave. They did it with Zeke Elliott. They did it with Tank Lawrence. So I think when push comes to shove closer to July 15th, the Cowboys and Dak will come to an agreement, and it will probably be 4 years, somewhere around $35 million. So with that being said, let's go ahead and rank Dak Prescott and where exactly he stands. I have 6 quarterbacks that I definitely believe are better than Dak Prescott, and I'm not going to argue with you about it. I mean, I think these are just the facts. So number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in football. Don't think it's close right now. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. Coming off an MVP season. He still has a lot of room to grow, but I don't think you can say that he's not better than Dak Prescott at this point. Number 3, Drew Brees. Probably the most accurate quarterback in football history and NFL history. He's better than Dak Prescott at this point. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I think both of those, even at their older age, I still think today you give those two the weapons that Dak has had throughout his career so far, I don't think you see the decline in numbers. And then from the Aaron Rodgers standpoint, you won't ever see the gaudy numbers that he put up when he won his Super Bowl, because his job is different now. And then a guy that is doing the most with the least amount of talent around him, I think, and leading his team to the playoffs every year, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, undoubtedly better than Dak Prescott. Not arguing with those 6 names. Those are just the facts. The next slate of quarterbacks, you can put these guys anywhere from 7 to 12, honestly. So in that grouping, you have Deshaun Watson. You have Carson Wentz. A lot of people, I think, would take Wentz over Dak, and I think that just is a preference of if you're a Cowboys fan or if you're an Eagles fan. I think that's what it comes down to. I think they're both in the same class. Then you have guys like Matt Ryan, who should have a Super Bowl if it wasn't for the biggest collapse in NFL history. Matt Ryan is in that same ballpark as Dak Prescott. Kirk Cousins. To me, Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott are the same guy. You put a lot of talent around them, they're going to be able to put up elite numbers. You saw that when Kirk Cousins went to Minnesota with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Came right back to it. You know, he put up numbers. He's balling in Minnesota. Dak Prescott gets Amari Cooper, balling. Without Amari Cooper in 2018, without Zeke and Tyron Smith in 2017, not balling. So I think Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, same guy. Next up, Matthew Stafford. He has injury issues, but same ballpark when he's healthy as Dak Prescott. It just is what it is. Then the next slate of quarterbacks where I think Dak Prescott is actually above, you start getting into your names like Jimmy Garoppolo. Good quarterback, but I think he's helped out a lot with the Shanahan system in San Francisco. And his body of work, his resume is not detailed enough or as far into his career as I think you need to be to make a fair assessment on exactly how good he is. I don't think he's elite. I don't even think he's at Dak Prescott's level of being good. Ben Roethlisberger, one can argue that he's probably in that tier that I just mentioned with, you know, Kirk Cousins and Dak and Carson Wentz. I don't think so anymore. We'll see. It remains to be seen how he comes back from his injury. He missed all but one game in 2019. Ryan Tannehill, not better than Dak Prescott. He just got paid in Tennessee because of his second half run in 2019. More power to you. Not better than Dak Prescott. I don't even know why he's mentioned in the same ballpark on some of these lists that some of these people have out here. Kyler Murray, not better than Dak Prescott at this point, although I think Kyler Murray, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, is poised for a big second season in the league. Keep your eye out on him. I think those last 3 or 4 quarterbacks aren't better than Dak Prescott. So overall, there's 6 quarterbacks about definitely better than Dak Prescott at this point, but there's about 7 or 8 following that 6 that you could argue are better than Dak Prescott, or you can argue that Dak Prescott's better than them. It's just your preference. I don't really argue these things anymore, but those are just my thoughts on where the quarterbacks kind of stand in the league right now. That does it for today's episode. Make sure you stay safe out there. If you're going out, do so responsibly. Until next time, salute.